It's that time of week again, and we're looking forward to this weekend's game against Brentford. I'm delighted to be joined by Dan Long, a Brentford FC fan and a freelance journalist for Sky. Dan, how are you?
Well, thank you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good.
Obviously, our supporters watching this might not have seen too much of Brentford last season. What should they expect?
They should expect a team who plays sort of a very attractive brand of football. A team, especially this Saturday, who's going to want to mark the first game at the new Brentford Community Stadium with the win. It should be an open game. I think losing to Fulham in the playoff final in the manner they did last month was a real kick in the teeth after such a good season last season, and losing 1-0 to Birmingham on the opening day wasn't ideal, but they'll sort of be eager to get that first win on the board and don't sort of expect any drastic changes from them this weekend.
You mentioned obviously the playoff final. It's tough mentally, I can imagine, for the players with the short turnaround to recover from such a defeat. Yeah. Do you think that's had a little bit of a hangover going into this year?
I think it's probably too early to say, but I would suggest that that's probably not going to be the case. Losing in that manner with one of the best Brentford teams in living memory was obviously very horrible. But they've been there so many times over the past 20, 30 years, bounced back from it. And I think personally, sort of the short gap between the two seasons is going to have softened the blow somewhat. Personally, I don't know how they feel, but that's what I think. They do have a tendency to start the seasons pretty slow, gradually build up momentum, and then sort of to the point where you think promotion's on the cards, and then just manage to miss out for one reason or another. But yeah, I think it's probably too early to say, but they should be all right from it, I reckon.
Yeah, I can imagine, despite having that blow at the end of the season, for yourself as a Brentford fan and Brentford players in general, it was a really, really good season for the club, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously Brentford have this model that everyone's becoming aware of now, where they pick up players in undervalued markets, develop them, and it seemed like last season it had all finally come together, and it was going to be that they were going to leave Griffin Park having an absolutely amazing team going up to the Premier League. It was just written in the stars. So it was very difficult when it sort of came apart at Wembley in the manner that it did last month.
Yeah, I can imagine so. And obviously they've had their first game of the season. Talk to us about the style of play. Has it changed much from last year? The principle's still the same?
Yeah, I would say that the principles are still the same. Obviously, there's been slight change in personnel. Sort of in the summer, it's like a 4-3-3 with exciting style. There's plenty of possession, and the fullbacks, Rico Henry and Henrik Dalsgaard, like to sort of bomb forward and complement that front three. Now, that front three is a lot different to last season. Last season, it was the BMW that everyone knew about. Yeah. But Ollie Watkins has obviously gone to Aston Villa now, and Said Benrahma is being heavily linked with a move to Crystal Palace. So it's a different combination. On Saturday was Sergi Canos on the left, Brian Mbeumo on the right, and then Ivan Toney through the middle. But it's just how long it takes for those three, or if there's another incoming, to gel. The success of it depends on that this season.
I was going to say, obviously, Ollie Watkins and Said Benrahma were huge players for Brentford last season. Ivan Toney's been brought in to fill Ollie Watkins' shoes, basically. What have you seen from him in pre-season and the first game?
I mean, he's not had too many opportunities, I would say, like chances kind of thing. But he looks a very hungry player. He looks, obviously, his talent spoke for itself in League One last season. But he's got a tough act to follow in Watkins. Watkins obviously spent the most of his career out on the wing beforehand, and then Thomas Frank moulded him into this number 9 to great effect last year. But yeah, Ivan Toney he looks hungry, and he's also got very good defensive presence. which is obviously an added bonus. It might take him a few weeks to settle in, but you feel that once that first goal goes in, there's going to be a shed load to follow.
And obviously with the transfer window ongoing during the season, how much harder has that made it kind of for Brentford, having to decide who to play, like every club, but deciding who to play, the potential of losing big players and having to replace them during the season?
Obviously, it's unsettling. But Thomas Frank he publicly said on several occasions, I think he said it on Saturday, on Sky on Saturday, that Watkins and Benrahma were the only players that were officially for sale. This model has got us to a place where we don't have to sell on players. We've sold players, so we're more financially stable now. Watkins, we knew he was going to go. We sort of anticipated that the pair of them were going to go once the playoff final was lost. But it's something that the fans have kind of grown used to over the past 4 or 5 years. It was a bit of a shock when sort of these big players were moving on in the first place, but now they have such faith in the directors of football, Rasmus Ankersen and Phil Giles, that they know an adequate replacement is likely to be on the way, really.
And obviously on the opening day of the season, Brentford lost 1-0 to Birmingham. I watched the highlights back, and it looks like Brentford put in a very good performance. What do you think went wrong against Birmingham?
It was deja vu again. It was kind of first game of last season, losing to them. I think it was a Christian Pedersen 20-yard header, unbelievably, that won it with their only chance of the game, I believe. They obviously had a lot more opportunities this time, and Brentford weren't short of creating any chances. Josh Da Silva hit the post, and Sergi Canos hit the crossbar with an improvised effort. And then there's another chance. Emiliano and Ivan Toney sort of denied in very quick succession. I just think Birmingham were very well organised, as they would be under Aitor Karanka. And it's just a case of those almost a first day nerves kind of thing, really. So not too much of an issue to worry about, really, I would say.
Just a case of being a little bit more clinical.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you've said this earlier before as well. It's the first game at the Brentford Community Stadium. It's a massive occasion for the club, isn't it? Despite there not being any fans there.
Yeah, massively. I mean, a new stadium for Brentford has been on the cards for decades, really. But I think once you've seen inside this stadium, I've not been there myself, but I've seen it on TV, and the Brentford did a tour. It looks unbelievable, and it's undoubtedly worth the wait, really. It was very sad to leave Griffin Park sort of earlier this year, and the club put on tours, and but it was never the goodbye that anyone envisaged. So yeah, it's a new chapter for the club. It's a bigger pitch, but you hope that by the time sort of fans are allowed back in, whenever that might be, they would have grown accustomed to this bigger pitch. Although the tightness is still there at the new stadium. Yeah, it's going to be very exciting times ahead, really, I think.
Do you think that might have an impact on the players having, like you say, it's a bigger pitch and new surroundings, a new environment for them? What kind of impact do you think that could have on Thomas Frank's side?
It's hard to say. I would say with being at the new ground, there's nothing to kind of compare it to.
Yeah.
It's like I say, it's still got that tightness, so you're very close to the pitch. I think. I mean, it's not quite as tight as Griffin Park, but it's tight. So yeah, I think they're used to playing on these bigger pitches at sort of stadiums around the country. Yeah, I think they should be fine. Yeah.
No, fantastic. And obviously, Brentford are well known to liking to keep the ball and press when to get it back. Huddersfield Town this season and Carlos Corberán have tried to do a similar thing, high intensity football, keeping the ball when we've got it. In this game, it's going to be two teams that obviously like to dominate and keep the ball. Be a really interesting battle, won't it?
Definitely. I'm really intrigued to see sort of how their style has changed. I think I was speaking to Stephen Chicken, the Huddersfield Examiner reporter, the other week, and it just mentioning how the last time Brentford came to not Brentford, Huddersfield came to Brentford, wasn't quite a feast for the eyes, let's put it that way. So I'm sure if it's any improvement on that, it's going to be quite something to watch. But yeah, open game, two sides that really like to attack, and yeah, it should be one to really look forward to.
I'm not sure Huddersfield Town fans would mind though if the same result came out.
No, absolutely.
Dan, thank you very much for giving us an insight into Brentford. Thank you very much.
No problem. Take care.